Appreciate the question.
Next question.
Next question.
Did they
Beth?
live?
Has there been any independent scientific study of previous Oxitec mosquito releases to determine whether the releases introduced any genetic change in local mosquito populations?
So during the Cayman trial that we saw the 96% reduction in the mosquitoes in, we looked for presence of the gene after the releases had stopped to check that there was nothing left in the environment. And within 2 weeks after stopping those releases, we could detect nothing in the environment because we've got this fluorescent marker in the mosquitoes, and it's a very powerful tool. It allows us to visualize the offspring from the crosses that we do, and it allows us to not only monitor but also detect the presence of that gene in the environment. So we have these powerful tools that allow us to monitor not only where it goes, but how long it stays there and whether it spreads.
Okay.
That was my question. The question asked, was it an independent study?
Oh, right. Sorry, my apologies. We worked with the Mosquito Research and Control Unit, and it was a collaboration. So, but we did submit it to Nature Biotechnology for independent review by independent scientists.
Okay. May I ask a follow-up question if he has a minute? Can you address the egg bank issue? So once they emerge, once they hatch, they disappear. What about the eggs that are going to be sitting there and waiting in a container for the next rain a month or two later?
Yes, thank you. So one of the things that we didn't have time for is that Aedes aegypti eggs, they can survive in the environment for 3 to 6 months because they can actually sort of dry out. So there is a chance that some of those eggs could survive for longer, but we did the analysis for how long after the Cayman trial? Was it?
Cayman was about 9 months. So we continued monitoring using ovi-traps. So one of the best methods for monitoring mosquitoes is you put out essentially a cup, and you might have seen some of those in your neighborhood. And the female mosquitoes lay eggs in those cups. Now, we can use those to monitor the general population of mosquito, but also we can recover those eggs and bring them back to the lab and hatch them out, and we can check for the presence of that gene, the fluorescence gene. And as Derek mentioned, that's one of the I think one of the great pieces of our technology that we've got. We can actually monitor how long they live for, how long they persist in the environment. So in terms of, I think the question was how long after we stopped releasing could we continue to detect? The adults disappeared within a couple of weeks because we also had adult traps. And the longest period after stopping release was 4 weeks in terms of ovi-traps that we've detected. And that's not just the Cayman study, that's the other studies we've been doing in Brazil as well.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Andy.
And for our next question, we have Reddy Turnstone. Rudy, where you at? Raise your hand for me. There we go. Reddy, I'm sorry.
First of all, son? Oh, I can't hear myself. Okay. First of all, I want to say that I think the format of this meeting is inappropriate in the sense that there wasn't an actual presentation more than 8 minutes about releasing genetically engineered mosquitoes, and I think the public deserves a longer presentation. I also want to say that the format of 4 minutes is dodging a lot of questions. And so I see that we have time later, but I hope that those questions are still answered later. I don't understand what exactly is native about a genetically engineered mosquito in terms of just like restoring native habitat. And also, please answer for me, it sounds like the studies have only been 9 months maximum. What are the long-term studies for genetically engineered mosquitoes impacts, and also the impact on species? Because birds and lots of other animals actually feed on them. What are the impacts to those species in regards to genetically engineered mosquitoes?
Actually, hold on.
Okay.
I do just want to, I'm not going to answer the study question that's up, but I will address the questions. We are limiting it 4 minutes so that we can get as many questions in as possible. I will take all these questions that are written down and I will answer them on our frequently asked questions site. I also answer every question that comes in to question@keysmosquitoes.org and also floridatrial@oxitec.com. But if anyone has sent me a question via email, they know that I answer it and I answer it as thoroughly as possible. So.
Thank you.
Okay. I hope I can get all your questions. So in terms of the other species, let me give you a quick rundown on Aedes aegypti. It's a species. Where did it come from? Why is it not native? Why is it native, et cetera? Okay. Can you please repeat just to make sure that I get the question you want?
What is native about a genetically engineered mosquito? And please answer the impact. Has there been a study of the impact to the species that eat mosquitoes?
Okay.
Such as birds?
Excellent. Okay. So the answer, there are studies about the effects on other species that eat. The ones that do, is it toxic to other insects to eat these mosquitoes? There was a concern if other insects eat. This is not part of your question, but let me answer it, and I'll get to that. What is that? If a mosquito, other insects eat these genetically modified mosquitoes, will it harm them? There have been studies on that. Derek can explain more about that. But the other question you have is, if, say we eradicated all the Aedes aegypti from Key West or in Key Haven, so all Monroe County, for example, this one species, the species that we're looking at is less than 1% of the total number of species in the county. There's about 45 species. This one is one, but it's really the only one that carries disease. It's the only dangerous one. The other ones are immensely problematic and nuisances. And, yes?
I'm asking about Aedes aegypti. I'm asking what is native about a genetically engineered mosquito with a rate of 3% that it's going to survive in some way or another?
Okay, well, if the project works as proposed, there will be very few mosquitoes of Aedes aegypti of any kind, either the introduced GM mosquitoes or native mosquitoes. So the total number of these non-native species, and the GM one is not native, obviously, any more than the ones that are here now, but the total number will be lower. So you'll have fewer non-native insects in the Keys. Number one. Now, why is that important to the rest of the environment? And it is important about this mosquito because it is essentially it's like the cockroach of the mosquito world. Its role is not a natural food source.
You're actually taking up to 4 minutes. Can you answer the top thing about species impacts?
Okay, certainly. There will be negligible species impact. And the reason is because, how do we know? Because this species lives in houses. Its role in the environment is to escape predation. So it lives in houses, following people and in people's yards. Yes, I'm sure some geckos and other have as generalist predators, but the total biomass of this species is tiny compared to salt marsh mosquitoes, which is out there by the hundreds of pounds. This particular species is it lives in houses like I mentioned, to avoid predators. So its role in the food chain is absolutely minimal, absolutely minimal.
And we had the same concerns.
Oh, there's many studies. I mean, okay. Well,
yeah. So
Hold on.
there's a lot of questions
Can't
coming.
answer all the questions at one time.
Okay.
I
Is
think
anyone
we got
else?
the gist of your question? Let them answer.
The gist of the question is, will there be a negative environmental impact if you would remove all of these mosquitoes? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Will consumption. Yes. Yeah. No. Apologies. We have done feeding studies with this mosquito. We had the same concerns about effects on predators, because we know, even though it might be a small chance that a predator might eat this, it's still possible. So we did feeding studies with other insects. We used a species called Toxorhynchites, which is a predatory insect, and we fed it 100% of our mosquitoes, and we had a control group with feeding just normal wild-type mosquitoes. And this was a study done in Malaysia, and we showed that there was absolutely no effect of feeding 100% on these mosquitoes to that predatory mosquito. Now, we know in the wild, they're not going to feed. Fish, we are doing a fish study, and we are doing a bird study. No, I believe we've almost finished those. Aedes aegypti lives in small pools of water. It breeds in and around your house. It does not live where fish are. Okay, so it does not, so there is very little risk, there's very little risk to fish. And other mammals might be able to feed on it, but we have done studies to show that this organism is non-toxic, basically, to other organisms.